What's up everyone, welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to be doing a scroll saw project. More specifically, this. This is a picture of the Incredible Hulk drawn by Michael Cho, comic book artist. It's beautiful. As soon as I saw this, I said, I am making this out of wood, so that's the one I'm going to roll with. Now, I'm going to go over step by step how to make this out of a bunch of different types of wood, but don't feel like you got to do Hulk. If you want to do another picture, go for it. You can apply any of these steps to any picture that you want to do. So the first thing I do whenever I see something like this is, I want to make it black and white. It's just easier for me to work with. So let's do that. Now, once it's black and white, I can look at it also and say, are there any aspects that I want to change, And I'm looking at it and I really want to focus on the Hulk. I don't care about the jet and the helicopter and stuff. I really just want to do the Hulk. So let's remove that. That's better. Now that we know our picture, let's look at our materials. I'm going with all kinds of different species of wood here. I've got some walnut. That's going to be for the picture frame that's going to hold our project. I've got some osage. I got some orange wood. This will be cool for that background right behind the Hulk as he's running. I got some purple heart. Beautiful stuff because you got to have purple pants if you're the Hulk. I got some lignum vitae here, specifically Argentinian lignum vitae, and it has this beautiful natural green color to it. Love this stuff. I'm also going to use some holly. This is like the whitest wood pretty much you can get. So awesome for doing eyeballs is some holly. And I got this big old chunk of wenge. I essentially want to take this big piece of wenge and I'm going to cut some of it down. This is going to be the core of our project. I want to have about half-inch thick piece of wenge, and that's going to be what all the stuff goes on top of, all the other pieces, and that's going to be all the shadows. So all of the dark areas in that picture, I'm going to have that as negative space, so you're going to see all of this on the background. And when you put finish on this wenge, it looks even darker, almost black. So I'm going to go with this. Then I'm going to take some of this orange wood here and I'm going to slice it down, probably 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch. I don't know. I'll eyeball it and then see what looks good. Then we take that, we cut out the outline of what we want, we glue it on top of the wenge and make a sandwich. Then we start adding the other pieces. It'll make sense as I go along. I got my wenge boards, and now it's time to glue them up so we have one big panel. So I'm gonna go ahead, glue this together, let it dry, and while it's drying, I'm gonna do the same exact thing with our orange lumber. It's just gonna be a lot thinner. This one is about 1/2 inch. I'm gonna go with around 1/8 of an inch over on that one. I cut my orange pieces down, so I'm gonna glue these together too and make a panel. But a trick that I use whenever I'm gluing together really thin pieces like this is I don't actually clamp them. When I find that when I clamp them, they want to bow and move around. So instead, I get something nice and flat, glue this all together, and then use some blue tape to hold it together. Make sure I get squeeze out on my entire joint so I know that I have a good bond. Push these pieces together tight, tape it down. And to make sure that all of this is going to stay flat, I am going to just put some weights on it. I sanded both of my panels up to 180 grit. Much easier to sand it now than to sand it later. And then I went ahead and cut them to their final length and their final width using the table saw. Now I know that I'm using quite a bit of equipment to do this. Just know you don't have to. You can usually buy different types of wood at different types of thicknesses. You might be able to buy it at 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch thick. You just are gonna have to do a little bit of shopping to try to find the pieces that are already milled up for you. I like to buy my stuff rough and I can mill it to whatever size I want. So now you can see that I can make that sandwich I was talking about. So the next step is to actually get into the scroll sawing. I need to print off my pattern, my template that I'm going to use. So we're going to print that off, we're going to stick it on here, then we're going to cut it out. It took 4 sheets of paper to get my entire picture on there. So I'm just going to trim these so that I can tape them all together. This is a situation which I wish I had one of those fancy paper cutters, as in fancy as in any paper cutter whatsoever, but I don't have one. I do have a ruler and an X-Acto knife, so I'll make do. I've got Hulk all taped up, and now I'm gonna stick it onto my orange panel here. And to do that, I'm gonna use some 3M Super 77. I totally dig this stuff. It has a really good bond, but unlike some of the other adhesives I've used, it doesn't soak through the paper. So it keeps the paper white, so it's easier for me to see, but it sticks really well. And then it comes off super easy by using just some mineral spirits. You wipe it with mineral spirits, and that paper will pull right off. Get that out of here. And then I want to take Hulk and I want to cover him in packing tape. This is good because it keeps my paper from fraying up as I'm cutting. Some people say that it helps lubricate the blade. I don't know if that's true or not. I've never really noticed. But if people say it does, then sweet. Finally, we get to do some actual scroll sawing. So I'm gonna cut out the outline of this, and I'm gonna try to stay on the outside of all of my black line. That way, whenever I cut the other pieces, I can be on the inside of those black lines, and that will leave that gap, and that's gonna be my shadow, which is gonna look really cool once I get everything together. To make my cuts, I am gonna use a 5R, 5 reverse tooth blade. What I have found, I've not used every type of blade known to man, but what I have found is I get straighter cuts whenever I use the bigger blade compared to, you know, like a 2 or a 3 or something like that. And I don't have a lot of tight corners with this, so I think this is gonna be good. And then whenever I'm cutting out the small pieces later on, I might switch to a smaller blade like a 2 to cut those out. But all this big stuff here, I'll go with a 5. I'm gonna drill a pilot hole down here in the corner. That way I can start making my cut, and then we'll go from there. That took about an hour-ish to cut out, so definitely a long time in my book to cut out. I don't know if that's because it's just so big or if it's because I'm a slow cutter. I don't know, but I really don't want to rush myself whenever I'm doing this. So now I can peel off this template, mainly the tape part of it. The other part will probably not want to come off, but that's why I have gloves on, because we're going to use some mineral spirits to peel off the rest. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about once I put the mineral spirits on there. Makes this way, way easier. Now look, just peels right off. Hulk looks really awesome, but check this out. If I put it, this Wingate panel behind it, it really starts to come to life. Before I glue these pieces together though, I am going to hit this with some sandpaper. So it's just way easier to sand it now before I attach it. So I'd like to take some sandpaper and just hit this inside edge here. Just make sure there's no fraying, and then any other areas I want to hit with sandpaper, I'll go ahead and do that. Then we're gonna glue all of this together, and we got the makings of a Hulk. I sanded it, I grabbed some clamps, I've got some glue, and I grabbed some cawls. These are just some pieces of MDF or wood or whatever I cut down so that I can put them across it and make sure that I have even clamping pressure across the whole thing. For this whole project, I'm probably gonna use 2 types of glue. One of them is Type-On 3. You could use really any Type-On product that you want. I just have this in the shop. Or I will use CA glue, also known as super glue. I wanna make sure that I'm getting glue over the entire surface. I don't wanna miss any spots. But I also don't want to drench this in glue because the more glue I put on there, the more glue that will squeeze out, and I'm gonna have a lot of cleanup and sanding to do that I don't want to have to do. I let the Hulk dry overnight and I think it looks really cool. So what I decided to do was to throw together a picture frame. That way I can see what it looks like in the frame. And what this is gonna help me is whenever I start putting in the pieces, I can use the frame kind of as a registration guide. But you don't have to make your own frame. If you're interested in it, I do have videos on how to make picture frames, so you can check those out. Or you could buy a frame if you wanted to, or just not do a frame. I think just like this looks really cool too. We could really tackle this picture in probably 4 different phases. You've got the ground here, you have Hulk's body, you have his pants, and then you have his face and his head. So we're gonna work on the ground now. And I milled up this piece of walnut, and I made sure it is slightly higher, slightly thicker than my orange background. It's just gonna give it a little bit of relief look, a little bit of shadow. It'll look good. Now, one thing to consider whenever you're doing this is the grain. Look at your board and decide what's gonna look best. In this case, I found this really cool piece of walnut. It has this light sap stripe here. And what I was thinking is, when I printed out my picture and I put it on here, the lighter stripe is gonna be here, so it looks like it's in the foreground, and then it gets darker in the back, so it's naturally gonna give my picture this 3-dimensional look. So I'm gonna take that, glue it onto here, and start cutting. Because of the design of this picture, there's gonna be a lot of areas that are gonna be cut out separately. So I do have these random pieces over here. So what I've done now is I have this big piece here, and there's a lot of shadows that are on the inside. So I took a super tiny drill bit, the smallest drill bit that I could find, and I drilled little pilot holes in these interior areas. And now I'm gonna switch over to a number 2 spiral blade. These are really delicate blades. They break super easy, but what I like about it is I can cut in any direction. So what I'll do is I can put this into those tiny little areas, and I don't have to worry about spinning my piece. I can really move it in any direction and then cut out those areas the best I can. I pulled off my decal and I wiped it with some mineral spirits so I could peel off all of that paper. And then I took just a little piece of 180 grit and hit in these little areas just to get the fraying off and clean it up a little bit. Now what I did was I clamped my board to the frame. And the reason why I did that is because now I could put it into place and register it against the edge of my frame. And I know exactly where it's gonna go. Now, if you don't use a frame, that's fine too. You don't have to do that. I need to do it for this particular piece. Once I get the bottom done, then I can take the frame off and I can do the rest because it won't touch the edge here.
I've got a ton of gravel in my shoe, world on my shoulder, heart full of blues out in the dirt, down in the dirt.
Last couple pieces on the rocks and the dirt. I have been using CA glue for most of these because there are so many pieces and they're so tiny that if I would have used wood glue, I feel like I would have been here forever, even though I kind of already feel like I've been here forever. CA glue makes this way faster. Couple sprays of accelerator. That looks really cool. So there we have it. All the ground, the rocks look done. This took me about 8 hours to do, spread out over multiple days. And I know that might be a little bit slow for some people, maybe it's fast for others, but I really had to take my time, and there are a lot of little pieces, a lot of areas to get into. Now that that's done, I'm gonna turn my attention to the Hulk. And to make him, I'm gonna use this beautiful piece of lignum vitae, nice dark green color. I really dig it. And when I bought this board, it didn't look like this. It actually looked like this, where it's more brown with little hints of green. You'll see this a lot with exotic woods, where the color may look kind of plain, or it might look brilliant, but then whenever you mill it down, or you sand it down, then it becomes kind of eh. Same thing with Purple Heart. Purple Heart looks purple. When you mill it down, it kind of looks more brownish. But what you could do is you could take this piece of wood and you could put it by the window, and the natural sunlight will turn it back to its original color. So, hooray science. I want my Hulk to kind of stand out from the rest of the picture. So I am going to take my board and sand it down, but still keep it a little bit proud of the dirt and the rocks we just put on there so it sticks out more. So I am going to print off my template, stick it on here, and get to cutting. I always try to keep my offcuts when I'm cutting out my pieces. And you see, this is the shadow line that was around the fist. And now I can put this into my area. Then I can glue down my piece, put that in, pull out the scraps, and now my fist is going to be exactly where it needs to be. After cutting so many small pieces to do the rocks, I'm really glad that Hulk's arm and chest are kind of one piece. I'll put my offcuts here, and then this piece should fit right into place. Now that I know that's where it goes, I'm gonna glue it down. We could pull out the extra. I've got Hulk's body, I got his hands, those are all done. So now I'm gonna take care of the face. So I was looking at the face, and it looks like it's really divided into three sections. You've got the lower jaw area, then you have the upper head, forehead going into the hair, and then you have the eyes and the mouth. And the eyes and the mouth are gonna be made out of holly. So I do have a little piece of holly here. This is great for doing those types of features because it is super bright white, and should make them really pop against the green. It's funny how whenever you cut out some of these pieces, they just kind of look like nothing. But then whenever you put it into place, magically, boom, it pops, and now you see Hulk's face. Check out how awesome Hulk is looking. His face looks fantastic with the teeth and the eyes really popping out. I like how it's all coming together. So the next step is we have the pants and the feet. So the pants are gonna be Purple Heart because, well, Hulk always has purple pants. So I have this piece of Purple Heart. I need to sand this down so it's about the same thickness as the rest of Hulk. Put my template on there and get to work. We got Hulk's pants, and I saved my offcuts so I can put my offcuts into place, and then I know that my pants are gonna fit exactly where they need to be. So it's time to apply glue. This is one of those pieces that I always like to sand before I glue things together, but this is so delicate. that as I was sanding, it looked like it was gonna break. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue it now and then sand it after it's together. Look at how cool this is turning out. I'm loving it. Now we need some feet.
Gonna tell you one more time. I can't run, I can't hide. I can't stay in no more. No.
We got Hulk all done. Looks fantastic. So I spent last night just doing a little bit of sanding with 180 grit, rounding over edges, making sure that I got everything exactly how I want. And then I also wiped it down with mineral spirits to get all the dust off. So now it's ready to apply finish. For finish, I'm gonna spray some lacquer. I think lacquer is just gonna be a lot easier to get inside all those nooks and crannies. So if we're gonna spray lacquer, we need some PPE. I am thrilled with how Hulk turned out. Even better than I was picturing. And I have to say, I probably spent 25 hours or so working on it. So not too bad, but at the same time, I'm also filming and that slows things down drastically. So hopefully this video inspires you to get in your shop and make something with a scroll saw. If you do, post pictures of it on social media, tag me. I love seeing other people's work. And until we meet again, get in your shop and build something awesome.